I've acquired a hell of a lot of wisdom. I know more than the vast majority of people. I'm more experienced than anybody who's ever run for the office. And I think I've proven myself to be honorable as well as also effective.
Wow. That's Joe's pitch. But voters think it's time to ditch. Biden making the case for re-election, touting his qualifications of being an old fart and knowing a lot of stuff. But the vast majority want to see him retire and eat ice cream. A new poll shows the president's approval rating at just 36%. That's a new all-time low. Democrats don't want the guy either. 58% would rather vote for someone else. And Biden is hemorrhaging support from Black, Hispanic, women, and moderate voters. His constant MAGA bashing is also backfiring. He's losing to Republican rivals Donald Trump and, to a lesser extent, Ron DeSantis. It's a brutal bunch of numbers, right, George?
This poll is just brutal for President Biden.
Absolutely, George. And you talked earlier about that record low approval rating for President Biden. It's actually 6 points down just since February. And the skepticism over his leadership extends deep inside his own party.
I was told I could not send the poll around to after 12 midnight. I sent it out at 12:02 because it kept me up. That coalition right now is fragmented. That should concern them.
That's not a good number for President Biden. Two-thirds of the American people say he's not sharp enough to be president.
Joe's numbers are terrible, and he knows just who to blame.
All they've heard is negative news for 3 years. Everything is negative. And I'm not being critical of the press, but you turn on the television, the only way you're going to get a hit is if there's something negative. You don't. Anyway, that's number one. But number two, I think we're in a situation where you have much of what we were able to do only is going to come into play now.
You know, Jesse, everybody complains about the press, but how can he do that when he has most of the mainstream media behind him? And also, he basically bashes half the country every chance he gets. He should not be complaining about who bashes who. He basically says half of the people are just unsavable.
Right. This poll's like the girl you say you hate, but the minute she looks at you and smiles, you fall in love. I love this poll from the bottom of my heart. And this tells me two things. I've been highly effective and have been able to persuade the American people. Now, two-thirds of the country agrees with me that Joe Biden's an unhealthy half-wit who's making their lives miserable. It also tells me that the Biden protection racket is failing. They have tried everything to hide this guy, to cover for this guy, and it's not working. And that gives me hope. Sometimes as a Republican, you get a little down. You look at these numbers, you feel like you're under siege, and you're like, oh, God, here we go again. I see a poll like this, and I get excited. That thrill just went down my leg. The last time, we all have to remember how lucky Joe Biden got. He had COVID. He had big tech. He had the CIA, FBI. He had everything going for him, and it had to work out perfectly. Are they going to be able to pull that off again? I mean, if he's at 36% now, with a summer of high gas prices, a teetering economy, bank records that are about to explode, and a spring offensive in Ukraine that could go sideways like that, and Title 42 ending, it could only go lower. I had a dream last night. I often don't tell people my dreams. I don't think it's masculine. But this dream was so good, I felt like I had to share. I had a dream on Saturday night that the elders of the Democratic Party sat Joe Biden down and then wheeled him out in front of the American people and said, it's time to go. I'm not going to read into it anything more than that. I also dreamt I could dunk. But this was a powerful and a symbolic dream. The fact that he said he's an honorable man after he's denied any responsibility for this illegitimate granddaughter, after this disgraceful exit from Afghanistan. You said it. He called half the country Neanderthal neo-Nazis. And then he says he's effective. Effective at what? I mean, he broke the border. Prices are up. Wages are down. I looked today. It said the stock market's only up 7% since Joe Biden has been in office. That's not a very good record, but I just want to thank ABC Washington Post for not juicing their own poll. It looks like they forgot to juice it. Thank you.
Harold, by the way, it's good to see you, man. Yeah, great to see you. Yeah, it's really good to see you, too. Within that screed, there was something he said that was really important. It was that the Dems might love this poll because maybe it's the excuse they need to push him out. And then they like the poll because Trump's doing so well that maybe in their heads, the preferable matchup will be a non-Biden and a Trump. Is that fair to say that they might actually like this poll?
I also like the fact that he could dunk in his dream as well. It got me going a bit. Two things I don't disagree with any of. You have to be alarmed if you're in the White House with these numbers for two things. One, the head-to-head matchup with Donald Trump. The president's now down. Now they'll argue that the Democrats will come back to him, but the Democrats should be there now, and that number is an alarming number. Two, 58% of Democrats want to see someone else run. You and I differ a little bit on this about RFK. I think he's a serious guy, but not a serious candidate for president, and the same is true for Marianne Williamson, which means to me that a Democrat who's a sitting governor, sitting senator, or sitting congressperson may say, or sitting elected official may say,
What if they're
standing or sitting, as long as they're in office, may say, you know what, maybe it's time for me to think about this. If you look at that 23 to 30%, the two of them combined, Kennedy and Williamson are polling at, that means that there's, and I argued, the judge and I had a little disagreement about this. If it's 4 weeks, I only meant 4 to 10 weeks from now, just because we're getting closer to when you have to decide if you're going to do something serious. Some in the party are going to say, look, anytime you face a difficult primary, H.W. Bush faced one, Carter faced one, they lost. Carter, interestingly, faced one. Kennedy, H.W. faced one with Buchanan. And then they had good candidates run against them. This is a recipe for a loss. So if I'm in the White House, you got to get him out talking about the things he hadn't done as well as people want. You're seeing the same polling. It's the border. Immediately, it's the debt ceiling. Get a deal on the debt ceiling and claim victory. Show up at the border like presidents used to show up in Iraq and Afghanistan in the middle of the night, saying, wow, I didn't know where he was going or she was going, and take the vice president with you and commit to doing something over the next few weeks, even working with Democrats and Republicans in the Congress. If you're serious about winning, and I think if you're serious about doing what's right for the country. Finally, it is May 8th. A day before an important birthday and 3 days before another, mine, the day before Dana's birthday. We're still November 2024 is the election. Now, in the midterms, we thought the Republicans were going to sweep up. We thought Republicans were going to sweep in the House and the Senate. But I will say this is not to degrade or diminish at all this poll. This is something that the Democrats in the White House should be alarmed about, because this is not a one-off. These polls have been trending this way for a while. So I hope the one thing that's different in this is that he's losing to Trump in a head-to-head. This is reason to be serious about this, Democrats, as we head into the summer.
Can I just say something, Judge? The thing I like about
that I'm around the table.
Yeah, that was very helpful. But again, I kind of zoned out. It was a rough weekend. But there's a really positive thing in here I found about the Hispanics and women and blacks taking a major hit. Could that be a sign that maybe identity politics has also kind of worn its way out?
Great point.
Thank you.
That, you know what, he can pander as much as he wants to, but he's not going to bring people along with him. What brings the public along with a candidate is when you have more jobs, like blacks did under the Trump administration, than ever in history. Women having more jobs, Chinese, minorities having more jobs. You know what? I think Americans are like, they're sensitive to the fact that they're trying to sell themselves to them, and they're not buying it anymore. Look, the president has spent the last 2 weeks out on the road, and guess what happened? His numbers went down. So you can tell that what this administration is going to do is they're going to keep him in the White House, and they can't keep doing that. But this guy made a promise in 2020. He said, I'm going to be the adult in the room. I'm going to restore America's to its moral standing. I'm going to make a historic role, Americans' historic role as a safe haven. Well, what do we have? What we have is 5 million illegals plus 1 million gotaways. So much for making America a safe haven. Restoring our moral standing after Afghanistan, what we saw there is an embarrassment. And the truth is that he comes out today, he has a press conference on air travel. Nobody cares, Joe. And you know what he says at the press conference? He says, Pete Buttigieg, I want to compliment him on his leadership. And in the interview with MSNBC, he says Kamala is doing a really, really good job. You're full of crap. Everybody knows you're full of crap. They're not buying it anymore.
There you go. You know, Dana, do you think they're going to just hide him again? Now that, like, the Joe show doesn't work, so hiding Biden is back.
Maybe. It reminds me of that movie that Eddie Murphy was in when he was going to run for Senate, and he had the same name as the white guy who was just, what's it called?
Distinguished Gentleman.
Distinguished Gentleman. And then he never he never showed up. He just like drove around in a truck that said his name,
Yeah.
and he got elected. And people were like, oh, we didn't know that that was the guy. So sometimes you can hide, and your numbers will be better. So Harold said something that I had written down. He just didn't quite go there all the way, which is it's only a matter of time when you have numbers like this that they start floating trial balloons of other names. Governor Newsom, remember we were talking about him?
Yeah.
Governor Whitmer. Wes Moore, Josh Shapiro, all sitting and standing governors, for example. So I think they're at the White House in more of a panic than they are letting on. Do you know the meme? You might not know the meme, but everyone at home does. The dog sitting in the room and there's fire all around, and the caption is, "This is fine."
Yes.
That's literally the Oval Office at the moment. And I feel like he also has had this problem where he's focused on things that people don't really care about, like a game of telephone. So American people called the White House and said, okay, we are concerned about immigration, crime, and inflation. And Joe Biden heard, okay, you want me to double the size of the IRS, and you want me to give rich people deals on electric vehicles, and you want me to figure out a way to debase America's standing in the world. Got it. And that's what has happened. And so I think that they're starting to see erosion from the people who said, fine, I will never vote for Trump. I'll only vote for a Democrat, no matter who it is. I think that erosion is going to start happening, and that's what's showing up in this poll.
You just gave me an idea, either for a segment or a book. Dana describes memes because we have a large blind audience, and you can't braille
Well,
a meme.
I just had the idea.
my God.
Can't braille a meme, but like just to
Yeah, he's rude.
Yeah, what?
Just kidding.
No, but you can. I found that really helpful to when you
Yeah?
explained a meme. A lot
Was
of
that
people.
helpful to you?
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
that's
It
good.
was.
Yeah,
And you can
move.
see. I can see. Barely. I am legally blind.
Everybody else
Stop
got it.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.